my fiancée cheated with my brother at our engagement party, but when my whole family called me controlling and took their side, I cut everyone off. Then a car crash left them in a coma for 4 months, and I had to decide if I'd come back. They never expected what I did. I'm 29 years old, work in digital marketing, and honestly, I need to get all of this off my chest because what happened like 2.5 years ago basically destroyed my life as I knew it. Well, not destroyed. I guess that word is too dramatic, but it definitely changed absolutely everything. And now, after all this time, my family wants me to act like nothing happened, like I can just forgive and forget. And I don't know. Maybe I'm being the bad guy here, but I can't do it. Not like this. I should start from the beginning, when things still made sense. I met Nicole when I was 19. She was 18. We were in college and it was one of those things that just works, you know? It wasn't love at first sight or any of that movie bullshit, but we got along well. We had the same friend groups. We liked the same terrible Netflix shows, and little by little we became inseparable. We were together for 7 years, 7 full years. And yeah, we had our problems like any couple, but nothing serious. Nothing that made me think everything was going to explode the way it did. My brother Ethan is 3 years younger than me, so he's like 26 now, and we always had a normal brother relationship. We fought when we were kids over stupid stuff, like who got to use the computer or who ate the last slice of pizza, but when we grew up, we got along fine. We weren't super close. Honestly, he had his life and I had mine, but we'd see each other at family dinners and everything was cordial. Nicole obviously met him because she came to my house all the time, and I thought they got along in a normal way, like future in-laws or whatever. Never. And when I say never, I mean never. Did I see any sign that something weird was going on? Not a strange look, not a suspicious conversation. Nothing. Looking back now, I don't know if I was a blind idiot or if they were just really good at hiding it. So I decided to propose to Nicole. We'd been together 7 years, living together for 2, and I felt like it. I was the right time. I saved for months to buy her a decent ring, not something super fancy because I'm not a millionaire, but something nice that I knew she'd like. It was a white gold ring with a small diamond, nothing over the top but elegant. It cost me like 3 months of savings, which for me was quite a bit of money considering I was paying rent and all the normal adult things. I proposed to her in February, at an Italian restaurant we really liked, that typical place with candles and all the cheesy romantic atmosphere. She said yes, obviously. We both cried like idiots. It was perfect. We decided to throw an engagement party in March, like a month after the proposal. We didn't want anything too formal, just a gathering at home with family and close friends, food, drinks, music, that kind of thing. I spent weeks organizing everything because I wanted it to be special. I got decent catering, decorated the backyard with lights I'd bought on sale, made a playlist with all our favorite songs. My parents came, Nicole's parents came, Ethan came obviously, and like 20 more friends. Everything was going incredibly well. People were happy. Nicole was radiant in that blue dress she loved. I was happy. Like genuinely happy in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. The party started around 7 in the evening. By 9:30, everyone was a bit drunk. Not wasted, but cheerful. And the vibe was perfect. I was inside the house looking for more ice in the freezer because we were running out, when one of my friends, I think it was David, came in and told me something like, "Hey, I think you should go to the patio." And he said it with a weird face, like uncomfortable, and I thought maybe someone had thrown up or something. I went out to the backyard, which was kind of dark because the decorative lights didn't illuminate that much, and there they were, Nicole and Ethan, kissing. It wasn't a cheek kiss or anything that could be misinterpreted. It was a full kiss, one of those with tongue and hands on each other's faces, completely lost in their moment. I stood there for like 5 seconds that felt like 5 hours. Like my fiancé and my brother, in my backyard, during my engagement party, kissing like it was nothing. I made a noise. I don't even know what it was. Maybe a gasp or something, and they separated abruptly. Nicole looked at me with her eyes super wide, and Ethan, my brother, looked at me and said nothing, just stood there. I remember the first thing I thought was, this isn't happening. It's a joke. it's a nightmare, something. But it wasn't. I went into the house. I don't even know how my legs carried me inside, and Nicole followed me. My parents were in the living room chatting with her parents, and everyone turned to look at us when we came in. Nicole was already crying, and I guess I had a horrible look on my face because my mom immediately asked what was wrong. I couldn't even speak. I just pointed toward the patio, where Ethan was still standing like an idiot. Nicole started saying, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We didn't want it to happen like this." And I just thought, you didn't want it to happen like this? So how did you want it to happen? At what point was this acceptable? The party obviously ended. Everyone started leaving because the atmosphere got super uncomfortable, and some of my friends were asking me what happened, but I couldn't even articulate the words. Nicole's parents took her away. She kept crying and saying she was sorry, and my parents stayed with Ethan in the living room. I went to my room, closed the door, and sat on the bed trying to understand what the hell had just happened. I could hear my parents talking to Ethan downstairs, but I couldn't understand what they were saying. I stayed there for like 2 hours, just sitting, not crying or anything, just empty. The next day, Nicole came to the house early. I hadn't slept at all. I'd stayed awake all night, staring at the ceiling and replaying everything in my head over and over. She knocked on the door, and when I opened it, her eyes were swollen from crying so much. She told me we needed to talk, and I was like, obviously, what else are we going to do? We sat in the living room and she started talking. She told me she had feelings for Ethan, that they'd been talking a lot by text for months, that they'd connected in a way they didn't expect, and that she couldn't marry me feeling this way. I asked her how long had this been going on, and she said that like 3 months ago, they'd started talking more often, and that about a month ago, they'd realized they felt something more. Then she told me something that still hurts when I think about it. She told me I was very controlling, that I always wanted things my way, that I never let her make important decisions, that with Ethan she felt freer. I was shocked because, controlling? Me? I'd never forbidden her anything, never told her what to do or not do. We'd always made decisions together. I asked her for examples of when I'd been controlling, and she mentioned super random things like that. I'd chosen the restaurant where I proposed without asking her if she liked that place, or that I always organized our vacations without consulting her on the details. And I thought, you're making up excuses. You're trying to justify what you did by making me the bad guy. I told her that, just like that, and she got angry and said I never listened to her, that was exactly the problem. She gave me back the ring that same day. She put it on the living room table and left. I stayed there sitting with that ring in my hand, that ring I'd saved for months for, and I felt like my entire future had disintegrated. I called my parents that afternoon because I needed to talk to someone, and when I told them what Nicole had said, that I was controlling and all that, I expected them to support me, to tell me she was wrong, but they didn't. My mom told me that maybe Nicole was right about some things, that I'd always been a bit stubborn, and that maybe I should reflect on my behavior. My dad said Ethan was very sorry, that it had been a mistake, but that feelings can't be controlled, and that we should try to keep the family together. I couldn't believe it. My family was taking their side. Their side. As if I was the problem, as if I'd done something to deserve my fiancé cheating on me with my brother at my own engagement party. I had a horrible argument with my parents that night. I told them I couldn't believe they were defending them, that Ethan had betrayed my trust in the worst possible way, and so had Nicole, and they kept saying I should be more understanding, that these things happen, that love is complicated. My mom literally said, "Well, son, if Nicole felt that way, it's because you were doing something wrong." That destroyed me more than the kiss, honestly. I cut contact with everyone. With Nicole, obviously, with Ethan, and with my parents. I blocked their numbers, deleted them from social media, everything. My friends were amazing, I have to say. They supported me completely and told me I had every right to be furious and to distance myself from that toxic situation. Nicole's parents called me like a week later to apologize. They told me they were very ashamed of what their daughter had done and that they completely understood if I didn't want to talk to them again. I thanked them and told them I didn't blame them, that they had nothing to do with Nicole's decisions. I moved out of the house where I lived with Nicole like 2 weeks after all this. I couldn't be there. Every corner reminded me of her, of us, of everything I thought we were going to have. I got a small apartment on the other side of town. Nothing fancy, but enough for me. I sold the ring, which was horrible, but I needed the money for the deposit on the new place. The next few months were basically a blur. I worked, came home, watched Netflix, slept, repeated. My friends invited me out, and sometimes I'd go. Like a year after all this, I found out through a mutual friend that Ethan and Nicole had gotten married. They had a small, private wedding, obviously, because they knew no one was going to celebrate them. My parents went. Of course. When they told me, I felt that pain again, like fresh, as if it had just happened. But I also felt some relief. You know what I mean? Like it confirmed that I'd done the right thing by distancing myself, that they really were together, and I wasn't making anything up or being dramatic. 2 full years passed without talking to any of them. 2 years in which I rebuilt my life little by little. I met new people. I focused on my work and got a promotion. I started going to the gym because I needed somewhere to discharge all the rage and frustration I had. Little by little, I started feeling better. Not happy. Exactly, but at peace. I dated some girls casually, nothing serious, but it was okay. I was learning to live with everything that had happened. Then, like 6 months ago, I got a call from my mom. It was the first time I'd heard her voice in 2 years. I didn't even know how she'd gotten my new number. Probably some friend or relative gave it to her. Her voice sounded destroyed, and the first thing she said was, "Joshua, please don't hang up, it's an emergency." And I stayed on the line because, well, an emergency is an emergency. She told me that Ethan and Nicole had been in a car accident, that a truck had hit them on a highway, and that both were in a coma at the hospital. She said the doctors didn't know if they were going to wake up, that they were very critical. Honestly, my first reaction was like shock, but not the kind of devastated shock I probably should have felt. It was more like neutral shock, like when you find out something bad happened to someone you used to know but who's no longer part of your life. I told her I was sorry to hear that and asked her why she was calling me. She started crying and said, because he was still my brother, that family had to be together in moments like this. I told her that 2 years ago they stopped being my family, that they had chosen their side and I had moved on with my life. She begged me to go to the hospital, to just go see them even once, and I told her I'd think about it and hung up. I didn't go to the hospital. I blocked her number again and tried to continue with my life. But like 2 days later, my dad showed up at my work. Yeah, at my work. He waited for me outside the building, and when I came out there, he was old and tired, and he told me we needed to talk. We went to a coffee shop nearby, and he told me more details about the accident. Apparently, Ethan was driving, and a truck ran a stop sign and hit them directly on the driver's side. Ethan was worse than Nicole, but both had head injuries and were in critical condition. And then he dropped the bomb. He told me that Ethan and Nicole had a baby. A 2-month-old boy. 2 months. I didn't even know Nicole was pregnant, obviously, because I hadn't talked to any of them in 2 years. The baby was fine. He wasn't in the car when the accident happened. He was with Nicole's parents. My dad told me they needed my help, that if Ethan and Nicole didn't wake up, someone had to take care of the baby, and that they were already too old to raise a small child. He was asking me, basically, to consider helping raise my brother and ex-fiancée's son. I laughed. I know it sounds horrible, but I laughed in his face. I said, "Are you kidding me? Are you asking me to raise the son of the 2 people who betrayed me in the worst possible way? The son who is literally the product of their relationship that started while Nicole was still with me? Seriously?" My dad got serious and said it wasn't the baby's fault, that he was my nephew, that blood was more important than resentment. And I told him that 2 years had passed in which he hadn't called me even once. 2 years in which he chose Ethan's side, and now he was coming to ask me for help only because they needed it. I told him no, that I wasn't going to raise that child, that it wasn't my responsibility, that they had made their choice, and now they had to live with the consequences. My dad told me I was being selfish, that the baby wasn't to blame for anything, and I responded that precisely because of that Nicole's parents or they themselves should find a solution. I got up from the table and left. I blocked my dad's number too. The next 2 weeks, I received probably 50 calls from numbers I didn't know. I didn't answer any because I knew it was my parents trying to reach me from other phones. They left voicemails that I eventually listened to, all basically saying the same thing, that I should reconsider, that it was time to forgive, that the baby needed family, that Ethan and Nicole were still not waking up, and doctors were losing hope. One message from my mom said, I deleted all the messages. Then they showed up at my apartment. Yeah. My parents knocked on my door on a Saturday morning at like 8 o'clock. I was in pajamas drinking coffee when I heard the doorbell. I opened the door without thinking, and there they were. My mom looked horrible, like she hadn't slept in weeks, and my dad had that contained angry face he always made when he was about to yell. I asked them what they wanted, and my mom immediately started crying, saying please let them come in, that they just wanted to talk. I told them no, to say whatever they had to say, there, in the hallway. My dad lost his patience and started yelling at me. He told me I was selfish, that I was letting my pride destroy what was left of our family, that the baby could end up an orphan, and I was there like nothing mattered to me, that Nicole and Ethan could die, and their son would be alone, and I didn't even have the courage to go to the hospital. My mom tried to calm him down, but he kept yelling, saying they'd raised me better than that he didn't recognize me, that I'd become someone cold and cruel. I stayed quiet for a moment, and then told them, very calmly, that Nicole had betrayed me when I thought we were going to spend the rest of our lives together. That Ethan, my brother, had kissed my fiancée during my engagement party. That you, my parents, chose their side instead of mine, told me I was the problem, that I was controlling and stubborn. That you abandoned me when I needed you most, and now you came to ask me to forgive everything as if nothing had happened. I told them I didn't hate the baby, that I didn't wish him any harm, but that it wasn't my responsibility to fix the mess they had created. My mom said something like, but he's your family, and I responded, that no, they stopped being my family when they chose Ethan over me. I told them I understood the situation was horrible, that I genuinely hoped Ethan and Nicole would recover for the baby's sake, but that I wasn't going to be part of the solution. I asked them to leave and close the door. I heard them stay there for like 5 more minutes, my mom crying and my dad mumbling things I didn't understand, and eventually they left. 2 weeks after that visit, I received a text message from an unknown number. It said something like, Hi Joshua, I'm Nicole's sister. Just wanted to tell you that Ethan and Nicole started responding to stimuli. Doctors say they're slowly coming out of the coma. I thought you'd want to know. I didn't respond to the message, but I'm not going to lie. I felt enormous relief. Not because I forgave them or because I wanted to talk to them again, but because it meant the baby was going to have his parents. That I wouldn't have to feel guilty for not intervening. During the following weeks, I kept receiving unsolicited updates from Nicole's sister. That Ethan opened his eyes, that Nicole started talking, that they were starting physical therapy, that the prognoses were good. I never responded to any of those messages, but I read them all. Like a month after they started waking up, I received another message saying both were fully awake, that they were going to recover, that it would take time, but they'd be okay. Part of me wanted to go to the hospital. I'm not gonna lie. I wanted to see them. Wanted to see how they were. Maybe I wanted a real apology, or maybe I just wanted to close that chapter of my life officially. But I didn't go. Not for weeks. Until one day, like 3 weeks after they woke up, I decided I needed to do it for myself. Not for them. I went to the hospital on a Tuesday afternoon when I knew my parents wouldn't be there because my mom worked on Tuesdays. I asked at reception for Ethan, and they told me his room number. I went up in the elevator feeling like I was going to throw up. And when I got to the right floor, I stood in the hallway for like 10 minutes. Finally, I knocked on the door and a nurse came out, asked me if I was family, and I told her I was Ethan's brother. She told me he was awake, but that Nicole was in another room because they'd been separated for different therapies. I went in and there was Ethan. He looked horrible, honestly, super skinny and pale, with a bunch of machines connected to him. When he saw me, his eyes opened huge and he immediately started crying. I stayed standing by the door, not knowing what to do or say. He tried to talk, but his voice came out super weak, and he said, Joshua, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I just nodded, didn't say anything. I asked about the baby and he told me he was fine, that Nicole's parents were taking care of him, that he was healthy and beautiful. Then he asked me if I wanted to meet him. The baby, my nephew. And I told him maybe someday. But not now. I told him I was there just to make sure he was alive and to close this chapter of my life. I told him I didn't hate him, but I didn't forgive him either. That I probably never would forgive him, and that I needed him to respect that. He cried more and said he understood, that he didn't expect me to forgive him. He told me he'd been the worst brother in the world, and that if he could turn back time, he'd do it differently. I went to Nicole's room too. She was awake, looking out the window, and when she saw me come in, she covered her face with her hands and started crying. It was awkward, very awkward. I asked her how she was, and she said fine, considering everything. She told me she was sorry, that she'd been an idiot, that nothing should have happened with Ethan, that I'd been good to her and she ruined everything. I told her yes, she had ruined everything, but that I hoped she'd be happy with Ethan and their son. She asked me if we could ever be friends again, and I told her honestly, I didn't know, that probably not. I met my nephew that day too. Nicole's parents had brought him to the hospital, and he was in the waiting area with Nicole's grandmother. He was a beautiful baby, honestly, with Ethan's eyes and Nicole's dark hair. I saw him from afar. I didn't hold him or anything, but I saw him, and I felt, I don't know, something. Not immediate love, or anything like that, but nothing negative either. He was just a baby, innocent of all the mess his parents had created. That was like 4 months ago. Since then, Ethan and Nicole recovered completely. They're home with the baby, returning to their normal life or as normal as it can be after an accident like that. They sent me a text message 2 months ago. A long message apologizing again, saying they wanted me to be part of their son's life if I was ever ready. That they didn't expect me to forgive but at least hoped I could find peace. I responded. I told them I accepted their apologies, but that accepting didn't mean forgiving. That I was glad they were okay, and that the baby had his parents, but that I needed to move on with my life separate from them. That maybe in the future things could be different, but not now. I wished them the best and told them that was my final answer for now. My parents have contacted me a couple times since then, trying to rebuild our relationship, saying they now understand why I was so angry and that they regret not being on my side. But it's hard, you know? It's hard to forgive someone who abandoned you when you needed them most, and only came back when they needed something from you. I've talked to them a bit. I respond to their messages occasionally, but I don't know if we'll ever have the relationship we had before. Honestly, I don't know if I want that. I met someone like 3 months ago. Her name is... Well, her name doesn't matter, but she's amazing. She's completely different from Nicole. And at first I was scared to trust someone again, but she's been patient. With me. I told her the whole story and she didn't judge me, just listened. We've been dating seriously and things are going well. I'm being cautious, but I'm also allowing myself to be happy again. Last week my nephew turned 7 months old. I know this because Nicole's sister sent me a photo. I didn't ask for the photo, but she sent it anyway. The baby was smiling, sitting with help, wearing a shirt that said something cheesy. I looked at it for a while and then put my phone away. I don't know if I'll ever want to be part of his life. Honestly, I don't know. Maybe when he's older and can understand things. Maybe then. Or maybe never. And I have to be okay with both possibilities. What I do know is that I made the right decision for me. I didn't allow myself to be manipulated into returning to a family that had hurt me deeply. I didn't sacrifice my peace of mind for a sense of obligation I didn't feel. And I don't regret it, even though sometimes people make me feel like I should. Regret it. I did what I needed to do to survive and eventually heal, and that's enough. That has to be enough.